Complexity is the most expensive tax on modern intelligence. In a world obsessed with sophisticated algorithms and multi-layered strategies, the human brain is biologically wired to distrust anything that appears too simple. This cognitive blind spot, known as the complexity bias, leads individuals to overlook the most effective solutions in favor of those that are merely more difficult to understand. It is a phenomenon that costs the average retirement account tens of thousands of dollars over a lifetime and keeps businesses trapped in inefficient operational cycles. The next few minutes will reveal why the most successful financial institutions and global enterprises prioritize radical simplicity over intellectual vanity. By understanding how to identify and strip away unnecessary layers of friction, a person can shift their focus toward the 20% of actions that drive 80% of their results. The payoff for mastering this mental model is a clearer path to sustainable growth and an immunity to the expensive allure of the over-engineered. The financial industry is perhaps the greatest benefactor of the complexity bias, often cloaking basic principles in dense terminology to justify premium fees. Consider the difference between a simple low-cost index fund with an expense ratio of 0.03% and an actively managed fund charging 1.5%. On a $1 million portfolio held over 30 years, that 1.47% difference doesn't just represent a small fee. It can equate to over $500,000 in lost wealth due to the erosion of compound interest. The data suggests that the more complex a strategy becomes, the more points of failure it introduces. Researchers have found that 92% of active large-cap fund managers failed to beat the S&P 500 over a 15-year period. Despite these statistics, the allure of the secret formula or the exclusive hedge fund strategy remains potent because people find it difficult to believe that a boring three-fund portfolio could possibly be the optimal path to wealth. This bias extends beyond finance and into the world of corporate management, where analysis paralysis often masquerades as due diligence. Large organizations frequently add layers of middle management and redundant reporting software under the guise of better oversight. However, a study by the Harvard Business Review indicated that the most profitable companies are often those with the lowest organizational friction, meaning they have fewer steps between a decision being made and that decision being executed. The cost of this friction is measured not just in dollars, but in the most valuable currency of all, time. When a process requires a dozen approvals or a strategy involves 50 different variables, the speed of execution drops to a crawl. In a competitive global market where the first mover advantage can be worth billions, the tendency to overcomplicate becomes a terminal liability for once great companies. But here's where it gets interesting. The brain doesn't just tolerate complexity, it actively seeks it out when facing high-stakes decisions. This is known as the effort heuristic, where individuals subconsciously believe that if a solution was easy to find, it must not be very valuable. It is the reason why a person might ignore a simple, effective health protocol, but pay thousands for a complicated and proven supplement regimen that involves precise timing and dozens of capsules. The market realizes this psychological flaw and exploits it by packaging simple products in complex wrappers. Whether it is a proprietary weight loss system or a bespoke tax strategy, the added complexity serves as a psychological lubricant to make a high price tag more palatable. Recognizing this pattern is the first step in protecting one's resources from the drain of unnecessary intellectual density. The roots of complexity bias are buried deep within the evolutionary history of the human species. For the majority of human existence, survival required a keen eye for nuance and a respect for the intricate patterns of nature. In the modern era, this instinct has been hijacked by an environment of information overload, where people mistake hard for important. The data tells a different story about how the world's most resilient systems actually function. Psychologists have identified that when a person is presented with two solutions to a problem, they will almost always gravitate toward the one that sounds more advanced. In an experiment involving consumer electronics, participants rated a device with 20 features as more valuable than a device with 5 features, even when they knew they would never use 15 of those functions. This desire for more is a survival mechanism that has become maladaptive in a world of abundance. In the workplace, this translates to the cult of the long hour. Many professionals believe that if they aren't working 80 hours a week on a complex project, they aren't providing value. However, studies in labor economics show that productivity per hour drops significantly after the 50-hour mark. The focus on the complexity of the grind often blinds individuals to the fact that their most significant breakthroughs usually come from simplifying their workflow, not adding more hours to it. This cognitive bias also affects how information is consumed and trusted. A speaker who uses jargon and complex sentence structures is often perceived as more authoritative than one who uses plain language. This is a dangerous trap, as it allows sophisticated-sounding falsehoods to bypass the critical thinking filters that would otherwise catch a simple lie. In truth, real expertise is often the ability to explain a complex topic in the simplest terms possible. Investors are particularly vulnerable to this, as they often feel that a simple strategy like buying and holding is too passive for such a serious endeavor. They feel a psychological need to do something, to tweak, to rebalance, to research the next big thing. Yet, a famous study by a major brokerage firm reportedly found that the best performing accounts belonged to people who had forgotten they had an account at all. Their lack of activity, the ultimate simplicity, was their greatest asset. The psychological friction of simplicity is that it leaves no room for the ego. A complex plan allows a person to feel like a visionary or a master of the universe, while a simple plan requires only discipline and patience. But as the following section will demonstrate, the world's most dominant business models are built on the foundations of radical, uncompromising simplification. When examining the most successful companies in history, a pattern of extreme simplification emerges. Take Southwest Airlines in its growth phase. While other airlines operated a dozen different types of aircraft, Southwest used only the Boeing 737. This decision reduced the complexity of maintenance, pilot training, and spare parts inventory. This simple operational choice allowed them to maintain a lower cost structure than competitors, resulting in decades of consistent profitability in a notoriously difficult industry. Similarly, the tech giant Apple became the first $3 trillion company by relentlessly pruning its product line. When Steve Jobs returned to the company in 1997, he famously cut 70% of the product roadmap, focusing on just 4 computers. By removing the complexity of a bloated inventory, Apple was able to pour its resources into the quality and design of a few core products. This focus is a prime example of using simplicity as a competitive moat. In manufacturing, the Toyota production system revolutionized the world by focusing on muda, the Japanese word for waste. This system identifies 7 types of waste, many of which are caused by unnecessary complexity in the production line. By simplifying the flow of materials and empowering workers to stop the line if they see a defect, Toyota achieved a level of efficiency and reliability that forced every other automaker to adapt or face obsolescence. The 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle, is the ultimate mathematical weapon against complexity bias. It suggests that in almost any system, 80% of the output is generated by 20% of the input. For a business, this usually means 80% of profits come from 20% of customers. For a student, 80% of the exam material comes from 20% of the textbook. Those who understand this do not try to master the 100%. They identify and dominate the critical 20%. Despite these clear advantages, the pressure to add complexity remains. Shareholders often demand new products, and managers feel the need to launch new initiatives to justify their roles. This feature creep is what eventually slows down even the most innovative firms. The challenge for any leader is not deciding what to add, but having the courage to decide what to take away. This leads to a fundamental question. If simplicity is so effective, how can an individual or a business implement it in a world that demands more? The answer lies in a specific mental framework used by some of the most effective thinkers in history. To combat complexity bias, one must adopt the principle of Occam's razor. When presented with competing hypotheses, the simplest one is most likely the correct one. In a business context, this means that the most straightforward strategy, the one with the fewest assumptions and the fewest moving parts, is usually the most robust. While it may not feel as intellectually satisfying as a 100-page slide deck, it is significantly more likely to survive contact with reality. Implementation begins with a simplicity audit. This involves examining every recurring task or investment and asking, if I were starting this today with current knowledge, would I include this step? If the answer is no, it is a candidate for elimination. In the world of personal finance, this might mean consolidating multiple bank accounts or moving away from speculative individual stocks toward a total market index fund. Another powerful tool is the inversion method popularized by Charlie Munger. Instead of asking how to make a system more complex and effective, ask what is currently making the system fail. Often, the answer is a layer of complexity that can be removed. By focusing on avoiding stupidity rather than seeking brilliance, an individual can eliminate the majority of the risks that lead to long-term failure. The simplicity moat is also a defensive strategy. When a process is simple, it is harder for competitors to disrupt and easier for a team to scale. A complex system requires geniuses to run it, which is a significant bottleneck. A simple system can be run by competent, disciplined people, making the entire organization more resilient and less dependent on any single individual. Consider the rise of Vanguard, which revolutionized the investment world by offering the simplest product imaginable, a fund that just tracks an index. By removing the need for high-paid analysts and complex trading floors, they created a cost advantage that was virtually impossible for traditional firms to compete with. They didn't win by being more complex. They won by being the most radically simple. Ultimately, the goal is sophisticated simplicity, the state where one has understood all the complexities of a problem, but has distilled the solution down to its most potent essence. This is the hallmark of mastery in any field, from engineering to asset management. It is not about being lazy. It is about having the clarity to focus only on what truly moves the needle. The most effective path to success is rarely the most complex one, but rather the one with the fewest points of failure and the highest degree of focus. If this changed how you think about the hidden costs of overcomplication, the next video breaks down the psychological traps of the sunk cost fallacy.